Okay. So as I said, I'm enjoying the fact that I'm able to get a taste for the practice. So I want to do it more and more. And I find myself just slipping into that attentive state during the day more times and actually enjoying it. So I feel the practice taking a life of its own. I don't know how to call it. And I'm gaining more confidence with it. So I'm seeing more how the pieces fit together in an intuitive way and seeing that, okay, this is really worthwhile pursuing at an intuitive level rather than, oh, it's just good for me. So,
Yes, this is all part of the practice that leads to ultimately the unification of mind.
all right.
But in order to lead to the unification of mind, many, many factors have to be brought together. And this is one of the points that is confusing or lost in modern Western Buddhism is when the Pali word samadhi
Mm-hmm.
is translated into the word
Concentration. Okay.
concentration. That really what the word samadhi means is gathering together
Mm-hmm.
a lot of factors. And so they, in fact, have various lists of these things. And that, in fact, in the Anapanasati Sutta, it mentions that we're practicing Anapanasati for the fulfillment
Mm-hmm.
of many of these groups. One of that group is called the Iddhiyapada, and the Iddhiyapada actually means the word pada is the foundation or the base, and that the base of Iddhiya, um, and by the word the in the Pali, actually rather the Sanskrit, and more in Hinduism,
Okay.
this is called siddhi in the sense of having powers.
Ah, okay. The spiritual powers. I think I've heard
The
about them.
spiritual powers, yes. Okay, well, in the Pali, it's actually Iddhi, and that we refer to it as the Iddhiyapada, so that we have both the powers themselves and also the basis of power. But
All
when
right.
you look at what the bases of power are, you wind up saying, oh, well, this is just another version of the parts of the Eightfold Noble Path,
Okay.
especially the part of energy and investigation and mindfulness. That kind of stuff then becomes the basis of power. And so now we begin to look at all these powers have also to be collected together, that we want this group of powers.
Mm-hmm. All
All
right.
right. So the way to look at the powers is the power, the feeling is this power is actually feeling the way that we feel.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And mostly how we feel is one of the woeful states or the hell realms, or feeling angry or anxiety, or we feel competitive, or we feel put upon, or we feel resentment, or we feel, there's a whole long list. I'm beginning to go through them here. Fear, right? That's the big one. In fact, that's the foundational one is the fear. But we also feel resentment of having to do things over and over again without getting what we would think of as a reward for
Mhm.
it. So the idea or the powers then are the things that we want to gather together rather than keeping the old feeling systems. We're going to start to develop a new feeling system. And so the various powers would be, I actually like the letter S
Okay.
because all of them can be said to be starting with the letter S. The
Oh, okay.
first one would be success.
All right.
The second one, and that's such an important
Mhm.
quality. That's actual power. If you feel like a failure, that's not very powerful.
Mm.
About the only power it has is the power to let us say, ask for help in a convincing
Okay.
way.
Mhm.
But then the real power is going to be from whoever the helper is or
Mhm.
whatever it is. So real power has to have that quality of success. That's the foundation of it. But that's also the part of the foundation of uh, one of the jhana factors, which is called piti.
Mhm.
That success is actually a major part of the sensation of pity, which is a really, really good feeling. And so they're very much related. A second word that would be one of the powers would be then satisfaction, which in the Pali we would have the word sukha. So you see how this list of powers actually is just another way or a description of Anapanasati in general. And the
Mhm.
fact that you find this in the Anapanasati Sutta is not a mistake. Another power that we would feel that starts with the letter S would be secure,
Okay.
that we're not
Mhm.
fearful, that we're not in danger, and we know that we're not in danger. We feel secure or safe.
Mhm.
This is the safety zone, that I'm not afraid. This is not fearful. This is uh, a state of relaxation, because if you see, if noise happens, the dogs get fearful,
Uh-huh.
and so they come on alert. But there is alert is the alert to danger,
Mhm.
where the alertness that we're working for is
Okay.
based in security and satisfaction, because we are successful at it. And then the next one I would have is the word satiation. Now,
Mhm.
that word is not
Okay.
used very often, and the first way to look at it is contentment, or we've had enough. It's very much like satisfaction, but satiation means that we really are full, in the sense of full of the Dhamma, overflowing. Imagine a really big bucket that is under a tap or under a faucet,
All right.
so that when the faucet is
Mhm.
turned on, the bucket being empty will start to make noise, and the farther the water arises, then the sound changes, the weight of the bucket, and many things change. But one of the qualities is that the bucket stays
Mhm.
there, and all of the water that's put in it is staying in the bucket.
Mhm.
But then there comes a point when you leave the faucet on and the bucket gets completely full up. That's the state of satiation. In other words, you can't put any more water in that bucket. It starts to just go everywhere. And so when one is completely full of the Dhamma, for instance, then it just spreads everywhere.
All right.
And this is the part of the quality of when the Dhamma has real power, is when it's actually overflowing. We are literally full of it.
All right. Uh,
So
okay.
an example of that would be
Mhm.
that everybody is in the car together and we all go to the buffet. One price and eat all you want. And everybody's sitting there over hours, all you want, and eat and eat and eat and eat. And so we then pay the bill, get in the car, and head home. And on the way home, somebody says, "Oh, there's a Burger King. Let's stop and get more food." And everybody else says, "No, I am full. I don't. If there's anything I don't want right now, is more food. I've had it, right?" And so this is the way also of thinking about it, is that we're completely full up. We're satiated.
Mhm.
And so it's not just content. The real power is when we're completely full of it.
All right.
Now, and so then with that regard, there comes a new quality of this power. And that is the power of wealth, that idia is actually wealth. And you can see that on the, let us say, mundane level, that people who are wealthy with money use it and are very powerful with it. They may be good, but most of the stuff they do bad, because people who want power are that way. But people who have power through the Dhamma then are capable of doing some good with it by being wealthy. And so one of the qualities that we do to develop that feeling of wealth, that feeling of overflowing, that feeling of we got plenty enough, is often there is the actual practice of generosity. Now, the practice of generosity is kind of different with the way that the Christians do it, because it's out of obligation, to where with this quality of generosity that we're working with is actually also has the power of being an antidote to feeling poor, to being impoverished. Because the feeling of poverty or not having enough is actually a form of selfishness. It's a form of that victimhood that we get into. So the victim is actually quite selfish, to where the winner, who is wealthy and overflowing, is not so selfish at all. That he's actually generous in that way. And so this is the generosity that is available through a practice of actually intending to be generous. And one of the ways that I do that here is that when any of the family members want to borrow money, that I work through TAM. And so that makes the whole family kind of indebted to her, and that puts her in a position of power. Now she's become the matriarch. That one of the qualities that we have is that if someone needs a place to stay, they can stay here. If they need something to eat, here it is. And so we've got several people who are living in the house because of that. It's through the generosity that we practice. And that gives Tam the power to the point that now she's the matriarch of the family and everybody looks up to her. Therefore, what she says goes. That's the power. So now that we look at that as at a mundane level, let's now take it up to the actual spiritual level. Now, on the way in that regard, that level, let us say that if someone like your brother or a family member that you've known for years comes and wants to borrow money from you, for whatever reason, perhaps your brother-in-law got busted and he needs to get bailed out of jail, or something like this. If we say, "Oh, I don't have the money, therefore I'm not going to give it to you," what that actually means is that I feel so poor that I will be in need of that money. And so by not giving that gift of the loan, everybody's unhappy. The guy who took out the loan or the guy who wants the loan doesn't get the money. He's disappointed. He may have to stay in jail. Or on the other side, the guy who, the Dhamma dude who is practicing generosity but doesn't right now because he's not giving the gift, then he also feels bad. A loan not given or a gift not given is not satisfactory. It's not satisfying. But the loan given, and then both sides are happy. I feel wealthy enough and generous enough that I can give what is needed. and that everybody winds up being happy. Now, at the spiritual level, all the way up to the spiritual level, almost everyone that you meet is broke, dead broke, and they're feeling poorly. They put their hands in the pockets, but the pockets are not empty. What do they have in their pockets?
Then
Anger, fear, resentment, anxiety, all of that stuff. And so being generous and being wealthy with the Dhamma, that means that we give them joy. That this is actually what is meant by the mudita.
Okay, sympathetic joy. Okay, all right.
Sympathetic joy, but it comes from a state of being overflowing with joy.
Yeah, you can't be depressed and be one with the joy of others.
Exactly. And so though I'm not out on the road very much, whenever I'm out on the road, I know that it happens on a regular basis just because of the situation, is that if we stop at a stoplight,
Okay.
that more than likely there's going to be kids in the car that's also stopped beside us in the stoplight. And so the thing to do is to give them great joy.
Okay.
And you can start by doing, yes, exactly, right. That's one of them. This one is another one.
Okay.
And then if we have time, we'll go for this one. Da 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 da. Okay. After
I need a bit of a
midnight.
stretch, but
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Now, when you and I are doing that, we do it in great joy. These are show things that that actually bring in joy, but they bring in joy for the kids too. The kids love it. And so this is one of the ways of you can do it out in the open. If you're at the airport and there's a kid, you see a kid 30, 40 meters away, you can still do things to get that kid's attention and then give that kid some entertaining joy. And so we begin to live our life like that because we have the joy to give. The generosity is there. But these are powers that are actually skills to be developed. And so the development is that way right through Anapanasati, that the more joy that you give to yourself, the more skill that is to be developed, then eventually you're going to become so full of it that that's the only way that you treat other people, is with that joy. And so this is one of the ways of looking at it is, well, why is the Buddha and Buddhism all so much about friendship? That the monks in the time of the Buddha, that's what they referred to each other as friends. It wasn't until his time of death that he even set any hierarchy into it. But the hierarchy had to do with, because there is something that really is good that happens to a guy, if even just being around the Dhamma and around other Dhamma dudes. He may not be practicing very well, but what will happen, it will take about 20 years, but by falling in line with the monks, he eventually has his mind fall in line with the Dhamma. It just kind of happens like that. You could basically say that he is actually gaining his joy through the reception of the mudita, but he's still gaining that joy and that friendship. Another quality of it is that within the human mind, there is a lot of restlessness, and that restlessness is either going to be diffused to the point that we don't know what the cause of it is.
Oh, okay.
And so therefore we will spend time in restless thoughts, trying to find solutions to problems, when the real issue is that I'm just feeling dissatisfied. And so I'm actually looking for problems to solve in the hopes that I'll feel better. But then there's another one, and that is when that restlessness does have an object that is not just free-floating anxiety and we're not quite sure where it is. No, in this case, we've identified the source of the suffering or the source of the problem, and that's another human being. He did it. And so often what we do with that is that we change it into competition. I'll show him, or I'm a better dude than he is. And we do that even in the Dhamma. I'm a better Dhamma dude than that monk over there. That's not spreading joy at all. That's just being competitive. And it comes out in the forms of gossip. But when our joy actually is to the point of overflowing, then we don't compete with other people anymore. We let everybody be who they are. We still see things correctly, but we don't see it in the sense of comparing. We just see it directly. And that we treat other people the way that we would like to be treated. So in a way, when Jesus says, do unto others the way that you want to be done, is actually a very, very good practice. But within the concepts of Buddhism, we've got it nailed down. We know exactly what we're doing. We know how to do it. We know what needs to be done. We know the skills that need to be developed, to where within Christianity, it's become a platitude because people don't know how to do it. And so learning to treat others as if they were your best friend will get you a lot of friends. And we do it by being overflowing with the Dhamma. So this is one of the groups of the factors that need to be gathered together in order for the mind to be in a state of samadhi. That in fact, this is just another kind of way of looking at it, is feeling and developing the sense of feeling wealthy. Now, you don't have to have a lot of money to do that. But if you do have money, you can use it to that advantage. So that you're generous with other people. You give them things that that help make their lives better. And this is a sense of wealth, but most people don't feel wealthy. In fact, the very, very big money bags, the people who do have a lot of money, have it because they always want more. That, $1 million was not enough for them. They still didn't feel wealthy. They need 10 million, so they get 10 million, probably by breaking some laws or doing some harm or whatever. Telling some lies, but now they got $10 million, but they're still not satisfied. They're still not happy. They still don't feel wealthy because they haven't developed these powers correctly. And so it's not the money that makes people feel wealthy. They may feel rich, but they're probably just filthy rich. Because the mind is still filthy. So this power that we're talking about comes in from this quality that I was mentioning of satiation, that we've had enough, we're full of it. Therefore, there is so much excess. That's when it becomes a real power, but all along the way of filling the self up with joy is still a skill that it needs to be developed through the practice of Anapanasati. Also, another way of looking, instead of the Iddhipada, there is the Indira, which are 5 powers. The 5 powers that way. So, or actually, they call them the 5 faculties, or the 5 facilities. And in there, you do have samadhi, and you also have shraddha. But the other factors are guess what? Sati, yep, that's them always there. You're going to have sati on that list too. You have to keep developing sati, and also investigation, and also right effort. So in a way, what we're talking about then, that one's right noble attitude that's on the Eightfold Noble Path is merely that mind of samadhi.
Okay.
So in fact, we're still talking about path factors, but now let's look at that issue of shraddha, which is confidence. Now that confidence that I can do it. If I can do it this time, I can do it next time. If I can do it next time, then the time after that, I can do it with flourish. So this is what we also mean by the five faculties or the five powers, and these are also, in a way, skills to be developed.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling like that you're a winner or feeling like that you're successful is so very close to feeling confident.
Mm-hmm.
That's shraddha. Now, the word shraddha is often translated into the English language word faith.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not a very good translation. There's really no power in faith. Faith is, in fact, in that regard, faith is I'm a loser, but I have faith that someday I will not be a loser. And it's not that change of attitude to where shraddha is definitely the development of I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And so these are the skills that need to be developed over and over and over again, and that they are all a group. Now, one of the things that a lot of students will get lost on, and it's possibly my fault, is because I overemphasize joy. It's like, oh, the
Yeah.
only thing that he's teaching us is get in bliss and stay in bliss, and you're good to go. No, there's these other powers that are needed to be developed, but that they are, in fact, going along hand in hand with that joy.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is how it works. And there is actually quite an interesting roadmap that's set out in the Sutta number 48 in the Majjhima Nikaya about the seven knowledges. And this very,
Okay.
very clearly lays out the path of Sotapan.
Okay.
And that the very first step is to begin to identify what suffering is in the form of mental hindrances. And so once we begin to see the mental hindrances, then we begin to throw them out. And when we throw them out more and more, shraddha begins to
Mm-hmm.
form. And then we have the knowledge that no matter how obstructed the mind is, we can clean that out.
Mm-hmm. If you
That
just remember to
confidence,
do it.
that level, right, that level of confidence is very powerful. And that's the first step that is noble. Super mundane. It's a
Okay.
factor of the path. And the important or the interesting point on that is and it's a factor that's not shared by ordinary people. This is
Mm-hmm.
what makes you unique and noble is because of that can-do attitude. That's really the most important point. And so the second knowledge in that regard is then the continuance of that growth so that we can get the mind into a steady state. We begin to develop that samadhi. This is in fact the first jhana. The first point then would be to get into first jhana is the first knowledge. And then the second knowledge is to be able to maintain the first jhana.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third knowledge would be, well, what are we going to do now that we've got the mind firm and set and we can stay in that state of joy? The answer to that is, let's do a really good investigation. Investigation of the body, investigation of the mind, investigation of the Four Noble Truths, the investigation of the five faculties,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
excuse me, the five khandhas, what they call the five aggregates. eventually leading up to the eventual deep understanding of how the mind actually works. And that is through the teaching of Paticca which is about where we're going to be going in the next several talks together.
All
Is
right.
right into the depths of Paticca. So once one gets to that level, so that we do a thorough investigation of the Dhamma with the mind that's fit for work, something clicks. And that final click is the absolute finishing off of doubt.
Okay.
Until there's always doubt. The first doubt is, what is this all about? Who made this mess? Who can I get to help me, etc., like that? That's the first doubt. And most people will stay in that state, especially if you've got religions who are trying to support you in that
Okay.
state. Oh, you need Jesus. Or, oh, you need to see this psychotherapist. Or, oh, you need AA.
Okay.
All right. But now that you've gotten over that, then the next doubt is the doubt about whether we can do it on our own, because we've already come to the point of recognizing ain't nobody going to fix this brain but the brain itself. And sorry about that, but it's all at home. Who made
No.
this mess in this house is the guy who lives in this house. That's who made that mess. And so now we say, but it's so much work to clean this mess out. So that's now what we're doing with the Shraddha, is that we're gaining the confidence that we can, in fact, clean up this mess because we're practicing. We're doing it. That there it is again. I took the trash out again. See, one more thing of trash is out the door. And so then the third one is the doubt about what is and is not the path. And once we go to the teachings of the Buddha to recognize, yes, there is suffering and there is an end to suffering, that first and third noble truth, and the cause of suffering, right down to Paticca, and the way we practice the path, and we say, that's it. That's the way I'm going to live my life. So then that's the third knowledge. And that's actually now about the midpoint on the way of the stream enter or the sotapan. This is actually the path. And the path is the recognition that this is the path. This is knowledge and vision of the path and what is not the path. What is not the path was basically every lie that I've ever been told. That's not the path. The society and doing what society says is not the path to freedom. That's what's not the path. All the rites, rules, rituals, squatting, postures, meditation positions, bowing and scraping in front of idols, lighting incense, candles, and all of that kind of stuff is not the path. What is the path? Right noble view, right noble sati, right noble effort, right noble attitude, giving right noble unification of mind, which then leads into right noble behavior. You see, mostly in religion, they teach it upside down. They give the kids a bunch of rules to follow, thinking that if they can follow the rule, they're good kids. And kids will get to the point of following all the rules, but they still resent it. They're still dissatisfied. Following the rules didn't make them happy. And so it's quite a conversion to recognize, oh, the rules will never make me happy, so I should stop looking at rules, or better still, take up a new rule. Have only one rule in life. Just one will do.
Dukkha
And what is
Nirodha.
that? Dukkha Nirodha. Yeah, you got me. See that dissatisfaction and throw it out. And that works every time. That's all the rule we need. Because the dukkha is actually what keeps the mind from being unified. And if we can find ways of getting out of that dukkha and getting into a state of satisfaction, then all of these elements will come together.
Yeah, I've seen that when I get my mind content and satisfied, like the pieces lock in, I get no more resistance from certain areas. Okay, we're done with this. We're gonna go on. That's sort of a feeling.
Yes, it's a
Becomes
good
like
feeling.
yeah, a cooperative mind. I don't know how to call it.
That's a way of saying it. Yeah, that
Yeah.
finally the mind is cooperating with you rather than being stuck in the past trying to figure out how to solve old problems. That the cooperation is the cooperation of this present moment. And all of these powers, all of these faculties come together, and that's what we mean by the unified mind, where we're free from doubt, free from lying, free from wanting things, at least wanting things enough to steal them, wanting to be friends with people, which means we don't spend a lot of time gossiping about other people. And yet you look at the average women, and I'm not talking about women in general, but it's just a good example that when women get together, they're always talking about someone who is normally part of the group but is missing today. So if you've got a group of 5 and 4 of them are there and the 5th one is out, then guess who's the object of the gospel? And that's just the natural way that the mind works. And that puts us in a state of competition. It causes separation. It keeps us from being friends, keeps us from being unified. And so you can see how all of this stuff fits together to this thing that we talk about as sama area samadhi, which means that the mind is unified. And the way we got the mind unified was first by unifying or bringing together the jhana factors of the first jhana, because the jhana factors are bases of the power.
Okay.
And so once we have that success, then we keep practicing it over and over again. And that's like one more drop in the bucket, and eventually the bucket's going to be full. And it starts to overflow. So this is another way of looking. And by the way, we've only covered 3 of the 7
Okay.
of the steps to Sotapan. And this is about the halfway point. This is, you know what a teeter-totter is, where the kids on one end back and forth,
Okay,
right?
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. All right. Well, imagine that you were on the teeter-totter on your own and it was at the bottom, and now you're climbing. And once you climb up to the middle point, then the balance of the teeter-totter changes. And if you keep going on that teeter-totter, it will go be downhill now from now on. So the climb is to get the mind into first jhana. The climb is then to get all of the path factors together so that you have direct knowledge and vision of what is the path and what is not the path. And then things begin to change. They shift from the path of Sotapan into the fruit. Now, the first item on the list of fruit is that we want to make sure that we're not causing any suffering. That's the first item up there. Suffering and no suffering. So if by mistake or by not watching or by not following the path or by being gossipy or doing anything like that, we are now doing something that is against our own idea of the right way to do it. We've done something wrong. Most of the time, the human beings already have an inflated view of themselves. And if they see themselves doing something wrong, they don't want to know it. It's called denial. So I want to have a good view of myself. But in the state of Sotapan, in this noble state, we actually want to know what we've done wrong and fix it. There are two Pali words. One is Hari and the other one is Opata.
Okay.
Hari is actually, what that means is in the style of being embarrassed. It's embarrassment or shyness, in the sense that if we screw up, we want to cover it over so that nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the thief thinks that it's okay to get to be a thief, but it's not okay to get caught.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to be talking about bank robbers. We can talk about cookie monsters. We can talk
Ah.
about kids at school. We can talk about cheating on tests. Any kind of thing like that is that we don't want to get caught doing it, but we're still willing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
In that regard, even if we confess it, our confession is not a real confession. Because a real
Right.
confession always has the quality is that I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's another feeling, and that feeling is opata,
Okay.
and it has the quality of I don't want to do wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and if I do wrong, I want to fix it. The English language word that most associates with that is guilt. But
Mm-hmm.
it can either be negative guilt or positive guilt, in the sense
Okay.
that people will continue to do wrong and continue to feel guilty. And
Mm-hmm.
then if they do right, they resent it and they would rather do the wrong and then feel guilty. So guilt will run out over resentment.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another kind of guilt, and that is a noble guilt, is
Okay.
when we recognize that we've done something wrong that's caused other people or ourselves suffering,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to stop it. And part of the stopping is making retribution, so we can make an apology.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's interesting, in English,
Okay.
they have two different kinds of doing an apology. One is by saying sorry, which means I feel bad, which means I'm already suffering in punishment. Please don't add new punishment.
Okay.
That in the Thai language, they actually have the word for the apologizing is ko tut.
Okay.
Now, ko in this regard is to do or to hit or to bang upon, and tut is
Okay.
one's backside. So the word is very short in Thai language, but it's very descriptive. Beat my ass.
Oh.
So that's actually kind of the same thing as saying sorry. But there's another way of doing it, and that is to offer an actual apology by saying apologies are offered, and then you get exactly what it is that needs to be stated that was the offense, and then ask what retribution there is for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the Sangha, they have that set out. So, in fact, the way that the Buddha talks about it is within the Sangha, because normally it's monks who are in the order of the Sangha that are this far along in the practice.
Okay.
All right, that this is not generally for laymen. So, in this practice, what the Buddha says is that no matter what offense the junior monk has done, he will go seek out a senior monk or his teacher or a trusted friend,
Mm-hmm.
and he will then open up, bare his chest, get it off his chest,
Okay.
or confess with the idea and the understanding that he's going to stop doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is actually, in some respects, looked in as a ceremony. But in another way of looking at it, this is a ceremony that's practiced every full moon, that is called the Patty Mork.
Okay.
And that some of the senior monks in large temples will just go around visiting around the temple to give the junior monks a chance to confess,
Okay.
to tell what they've done wrong, so that when they come to the Patimokkha and do the actual palio ceremony of the confession, they will then be purified, so that when they go into the assembly of the Patimokkha, then the assembly can be the way that the Buddha had described it. When he had an assembly there, he would say, monks, in this assembly right now, I see no one who is bearing any burdens of
Okay.
sin or whatever. That everyone here has absolved themselves of whatever minor crimes that they have committed. And so that's the way that we want to look at the Sangha then, or the monks in the Sangha, they want to look at it as if there are no wrongdoers anywhere here. There is no reason to compare myself, that we're all brothers, we're all friends, that all is forgiven, that there are no conflicts or
Okay.
divisions within the Sangha, that we're in a state of agreement at an emotional level, even if we're not in agreement at a conceptual level about ideas and things. So this is the fourth knowledge, the knowledge of actually wanting to see what we've done wrong. Now, we're not finished with that fourth one, but let's move on, because
Okay.
it's got to come back and be revisited. But the important quality of that fourth knowledge is that we really do want to see what's wrong and to bring it out in the open and to get it fixed.
Okay.
This is a major quality of the way that the Buddha and the Buddha Sangha is built up. And this is what then we would call conflict resolution. If
Okay.
I've caused some conflict, I want to get it resolved. There is another way, and that is conflict avoidance, which means that if people get into an argument, they won't be friends after that. If
They
you
just
did
won't
me
talk
wrong,
anymore.
now we're enemies, okay? That's conflict avoidance, and that's actually common. That's more common in the West than actual conflict resolution. But in Thailand, because of the nature of the way things are, conflict avoidance, because they just don't want to have any conflict at all. Now, ultimately, when one's mind is completely unified, that means that there's no conflict. So you have these three. One is conflict resolution, conflict avoidance, or hey man, there was never any conflict ever. There's no conflict. I don't see a problem here. and that's the higher one, is to be free from those kind of conflicts, because our behavior is not causing any conflict, that we're in a state of unification. And so then the next one, step 5, is really interesting. And that is that because we have started to practice this way, this is when real dedication steps up.
Okay.
The dedication to the path, the determination. Now, I want to caution you about the word devotion, because this is not devotion. Devotion is kind of a religious thing, like being devoted to the helper in order to keep the help coming. This is more of the dedication or the determination of the path, and it requires a lot of time. That, in fact, me being on the internet allows me then with the students to spend a lot of time in the Dhamma. It's probably better
Yeah, I
for me
like
than
that.
it is for the students. Because I get to talk about the really good stuff over and over and over again. And so this is what we mean. The analogy, by the way, in the sutta is the analogy of the cow who is taking care of a young calf. That even though she is feeding, even though she's eating grass, she's got an eye out for that calf. She's always looking for that calf. She's if there is a wide open space that she can see easily, and on this side over here is jungle, and she's pretty close to the jungle, then she will position herself between herself and the jungle, and then she can watch out for the calf. So a lot of the time when she's watching out for the calf, her head is turning towards the jungle, but really what she's doing is protecting the calf. She's paying attention to the calf, making sure that the calf is safe. Every moment is not going to be under attack. Well, that's how we begin to look at the Dhamma. We want to be so on top of watching for suffering, watching the Dhamma, paying close attention to the Dhamma on a regular basis. In the sutta, the Buddha talks about though the monk has monthly duties at the temple, such as sweeping or whatever, still while he's sweeping, he's doing Dhamma. He's thinking about the Dhamma. He's looking at how he feels about the sweeping and the Four Noble Truths, and he's reciting and just staying with the Dhamma. That's the fifth knowledge, and that's the when we become, let us say, and this is a way of just saying it, so in love with the Dhamma that that's really the only thing that we care about. We will clean the temple if that's the duty, but that's just the duty that we're doing. And that the song then that we would sing would be Whistle While We Work. The whistle is the Dhamma, but we still have some work to do. So let's get what work needs to be done, but we're going to do it with great joy, paying attention to the Dhamma. So then the sixth knowledge is the knowledge of eagerness. We really want to hear the Dhamma. We like calling the old fat dude on Skype. We like to hear it. We like to listen to the Dhamma. We like to share it with others. We like to talk about it. We're eager for it. Eager to hear, eager to learn, eager to watch. And you can see that that eagerness is actually the natural outcome of the determination. We start with determination. We're determined to not allow the suffering to come. Now we're eager. We're eager to watch for it. We're eager there. Okay? And so then the crowning jewel is the seventh knowledge. And that seventh knowledge is taking delight in the Dhamma.
Okay.
This is the point when it's overflowing. This is when we become really wealthy with the Dhamma. And we take delight in the Dhamma so that everything winds up being Dhamma. There is nothing else but Dhamma. Yeah, sweeping is sweeping, but it's Dhamma. And so these are the seven knowledges that brings one to a very, very healthy state of, number one, he's got all the knowledge now that he needs. He's got the knowledge of joy. He's got the knowledge of eagerness. He's got the knowledge of dedication. He's got the knowledge of being able to see what he's done wrong and do something about it. But now when you add this seventh one to that fourth one, that means that I can gladly, happily look at what I've done wrong, gladly, happily apologize for it, gladly, happily note it well, and therefore I am no longer in the state of hiding from or wanting to conceal what I've done wrong, that I'm happily able to get past it because I know that that's just suffering. That's just more unsatisfaction. And so we become very glad to dump all of that, to get rid of it. And so now we have all of the knowledge that we need to continue on the path that's going to eventually rid ourselves of the deep underlying greed and our deep underlying dissatisfaction, our ill will, and our wanting things that we don't have, because we can see that those two fetters cause dissatisfaction. And so as we progress along the path, then we start dealing with the deeper thing that mostly has to do with fear of survival.
All right.
All right. And so we begin to work with the issues about death and restlessness. And this is where we can really then become friends with everybody, is because we're not competing with anybody. You are
Right.
you and me are me, and we can be friends whether we agree or not. And so this is the path of the Buddha. And when you get to a place, basically what I'm talking about is a place of review, so that you review over time, how have I been doing? What greed has come up? What ill will has come up? When have I been angry? When was the last time I was angry? When was the last time that I was started to get angry and then caught it before it got out?
Okay.
All right, this is the kind of review, which is actually another way of looking at an investigation, but now we're broadening the scope. Up until now, it was always only associated with this present moment. But when we've gotten very good at being here this present moment, then over time we can say, hey, I have been here in this present moment for thus and thus points to the point that I did not fall into anger, I did not fall into fear, did not fall into anxiety, or when I did fall into anxiety, I got right back up out of it. And so this is the kind of ongoing review that is done.
Okay.
But that ongoing review can start right away. That's in fact the first thing that happened. If you hadn't been doing some sort of ongoing review, you'd have never called me. You'd have been getting complete denial. And so this is a way of looking at the path, and you can see already that you're beginning to develop the skills necessary to bring all of this stuff together, so that the mind becomes unified. It will take a while, but the
No
skill
rush.
development is a lot of fun.
Yeah, you've covered the basis for the good in the beginning part, which I think I was missing and a
Yes,
lot of people are missing.
yes, a lot of people are missing that good in the middle, hoping that, or excuse me, good in the beginning, they're missing. They're hoping that it'll eventually get good in the middle,
Yeah.
and then they're caught in the middle, and it still ain't good. And they say, well, maybe by the end of it all, it'll get good. And then they die. If it's not good in the beginning, it's not going to get good in the middle. It's not going to get good in the end. And so we have to find a way of developing these skills so that it's really, really good right from the beginning. And then it really gets good in that middle part, when the Dhamma is delightful. That joy is just about it. You're full of it. It's just wonderful. But then over time with that, then it settles down into an absolute satisfying nothing much.
Okay.
And that's really nice. But we have to build that joy. We have to get that point of delight. We have to get that eagerness going, to become eager for the Dhamma. And that eagerness is built upon determination. And that determination is coming from the determination to see what I'm doing wrong. And that is built upon the fact that now I understand what is and what is not the path. And the way that we see that is by going to getting ourselves into first jhana. And we get ourselves into first jhana by practicing, oh, I can do this. I can do this. I can keep coming back and coming back. So that we start with the first wallet, then we have the second, all the way down the path. And so next time when we talk, what we're going to talk about is what we're doing in that third step. which we've
Okay.
already been talking about all along, but it really is what is and what is not the path of the Buddha. We have to really understand how the mind actually works, because this is the point when we actually start eradicating those first three fetters, especially the fetter in this regard, the fetter of doubt about what is the path and what is not the path. And you still have a bit of doubt. It's still lingering, but you're on your way. You're figuring it out, and you can figure it out, so that you become completely settled with, oh, I know that I know. Without a doubt, I've got it. I've seen it. I can see clearly now. And so that's where we're working at this point. And the way that we will do that is by working with the 5 aggregates and the 12 steps of dependent origination, which is basically is a way of talking about how the mind works. Okay. So do you have any questions about what we've done so far today?
Yeah, I think I have. Maybe I have a bit of an answer. I was thinking about the practice of generosity in, let's say, more difficult situations, such as when maybe being with close relatives that are in an intense argument, or being with somebody that's suffering from like a physical ailment, and interacting with that person. So from what I guess I should be cultivating the feeling of, okay, I'm okay with this in just inside me. But then when I interact with the other person, I don't want to make the other person feel like I'm not caring. It's a bit weird. I don't want to manifest like
All right.
too much joy.
Here's the thing about sympathetic joy. That the word sympathetic means that it works in symphony or in harmony.
Yeah, I understand. I was thinking more about compassion, I think.
Right. So if you bring a violin into the room that's tuned properly and you play on a trumpet the note A, then the violin A string will begin to vibrate in sympathy with the trumpet. All right. That's different than the way that we normally use sympathy in the English language as, oh, I'm going in there because you feel bad. I'm going to sympathize with you. Oh, poor dear. Oh, poor you. Oh, I know how you feel. I felt so bad also. Okay. That's typically the way that you're supposed to do it within the society. In other words, you go into that room, that hospital room, or where that nut house room at or the old folks' home, or wherever you're going to meet this invalid or this person in pain or suffering. That what you're going to do is to carry joy in there, because that's what you want to give them, not sympathy. But joy. If you can get, oh, wow, you're really looking good today. I'm so happy to see you. I've been thinking about you all day long, about how good you're feeling right now. And they say, oh, I don't feel so good. And I said, well, it looks like to me like you've got a smile. See, I see that smile coming. And so we literally take our joy and keep putting it on them until we get them in a state of joy.
Yeah, that's better than the, okay, I feel bad with you, poor you.
Right. Don't sympathize with them. Get them to the point that they can sympathize with you. And you're vibrating at a high level of joy. And so they're going to start vibrating with that joy, just like I was talking about with the kids in the car next door, making faces at them. Kids are a whole lot easier to get in a state of joy, and they don't want it. They want to suffer. So does that answer your question about that?
All right.
Great.
Yeah, that's good. I was just feeling that there might be an unskillful approach of trying to force them into joy, when like you should be kind of subtle about it. If you're trying to flaunt off, oh, look at me, I'm so joyful. So No, but I
Actually,
understand that.
no. One of the things that happens at big hospitals, especially when they have a large children's ward, is
Okay.
they do want clowns. They do
Mm-hmm.
want Santa Claus. They do want Easter bunnies. They
Mm-hmm.
want people to go in there and spread joy at the hospital.
Okay.
But they need that. They need the event or the uniform or the
Okay.
they need the
Uh-huh.
uniform of a big bird in order to be a big bird. They can't be just a big bird. Okay.
All right.
And so you don't need the uniform. What you need, though, is the gift that the
Mm-hmm.
uniform normally
All right.
exemplifies,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can go on to the ward as Santa Claus. In fact, the right time to do it is in July. Get a real old Santa Claus uniform in December, and then wear it into the hospital in July. You'll make a big splash.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
All right, so that's how you begin to spread it. You want to become completely overflowing with joy, so that that's what you have to offer, even to the invalid.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay.
Now that's real metta. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, oh, may all beings be happy. It's you one who laying in bed suffering right now. You be happy.
Okay. Yeah, that's a much better approach.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you again soon.
Mm-hmm. All right. Will do.
See you.
Thanks again. See ya. Bye bye.
Bye bye. I love your laugh.